I wonder if in the year 2000, medical device makers had to file for special Y2K 510Ks. 510K, the number 5, the number 1, the number 0, open parentheses, K, close parentheses. 510K. 510Ks are a quick way of saying 510K clearances or 510K approvals. And that might not help that much, so let's talk about what that is. Well, it is a special kind of approval given by the Food and Drug Administration of the USA towards medical devices. So basically any engineer who works in the medical device industry in the United States, and there are a lot of you, have to know what a 510K is. And in fact, non-engineers and normal citizens who use medical devices probably should understand a little bit about 510Ks as well. It's quite interesting. First of all, the medical device industry involves a ton of different types of engineers, not just biomedical engineers, but of course, electrical engineers if you're creating some electrical device, or mechanical engineers if you're making bone replacements or tools, or maybe computer scientists and other scientists, and manufacturing engineers and chemical engineers if you make drugs or drug delivery systems. So tons of engineers are involved. And if you make any kind of device for Americans, or you're going to sell a device in the USA, you got to get special approval from our Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA. In fact, in 1976, there was a special law passed requiring the FDA to monitor and review these different devices that are being introduced into our market so that we don't kill people, poison people, so that we aren't just selling quackery. I love that word quackery, by the way. So if we go to the FDA website itself, let's read what it says about the FDA's mandate directly. And I quote, Section 510K of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act requires device manufacturers who must register to notify FDA of their intent to market a medical device at least 90 days in advance. This is known as pre-market notification, also called PMN, or 510K. End of quote. That's a bunch of jargon as well, but did you get that? A 510K is a certain section of the law, of United States law, requiring the FDA to get medical device makers to say, hey, I plan on selling this new flu vaccine delivery system in like 3 months. Come look at my design. Tell me it's okay to advertise and sell and use. That's what that Section 510K of the law says. And if the FDA does say, okay, that device is fine, you can go ahead and advertise it and everything. If the FDA says that, well, I got my 510K. It's kind of interesting because before 1976, you might wonder, okay, what happened? Did they not have anyone monitor this stuff? Well, yeah, it wasn't monitored so closely at the federal level. And so we had a whole bunch of medical devices that were used pre-1976, not just Band-Aids, but maybe surgical tools and electrical devices, because electricity was certainly invented before 1976. And so after this law was passed, a bunch of existing devices were kind of grandfathered in, and we were like, okay, you don't actually have to submit clinical trials and evidence that Band-Aids are safe all over again, or that this pacemaker is safe all over again or something. But what you do have to do is, if you're introducing any new device, you better tell the FDA if it's similar to an existing device or if it's significantly different. And if it is significantly different, then you got to submit evidence that you should be allowed to sell it and use it, and you're not going to kill anyone, poison anyone, all those same things that we've been saying. And it's even more interesting because today there's controversy. Some people might argue that some companies or medical device makers are getting 510K clearance for devices that shouldn't. They're saying that, oh, my new shoulder implant is medically similar to other devices already sold and on the market, but maybe they're comparing it to a medical device that was out there before 1976. And so none of these medical devices were ever really tested thoroughly. So that's a little iffy. On the other side of the coin, we don't want to stifle innovation. We also don't want to prevent people from getting their pacemakers or their bandages or their MRIs or whatever. And so there's this balance of like providing cool medical innovations, but also not wasting patients' money and time and health and all that stuff. 510Ks are a little bit controversial today, and it'd be great to learn a little bit more about them if you got the time. So that is our engineering word of the day, or acronym or jargon or whatever it is. It is a 510K. Hi, it's your host Pius, former biomedical engineer and current software developer. I also host the K-12 Engineering Education Podcast, all about how to bring engineering concepts to everybody, including people younger than college aged. That podcast can be found at k12engineering.net. So go on over and take a listen. Thanks.